Hello everybody, Razorblade Mango here, and continuing with the year-end list, gotta do the one that I honestly dislike doing the most, which is the most disappointing games of 2016. Because in all honesty, I wanted all of these games to be good. I would have loved for all of these games to have a spot on the cream of the crop list, but they just didn't cut it for me. And I don't like thinking about them, but for this video, and for you guys, and because you guys, some of you guys out there really look forward to me listing these, which I greatly appreciate, I will go ahead and do it and think about these games one last time for you guys. Because you guys are just that cool. So, well, let's not keep you guys waiting. Without further ado, here are my most disappointing games of 2016. The first big disappointment of the year is Sherlock Holmes, The Devil's Daughter. A couple years ago, I thought its predecessor, Crimes and Punishment, was one of the best games of 2014. And still to this day, and I recently finished it, my second playthrough today as well, remains one of, in my opinion, the most underappreciated games of this console generation, or of any console generation. I think Crimes and Punishment is such a good game. It really does its best to get you inside the head of Sherlock Holmes. It makes you feel like this brilliant detective. It's great. It's such a good game. And then there's The Devil's Daughter, which, right off the bat, I couldn't even play because the game got an unannounced delay on consoles in North America, which they never explained, and it was really odd why. Then they switched publishers, which was even odder. So I think something was going on behind the scenes that really affected this game. And boy, does it show in the game itself. Instead of 6 really interesting stories or cases this time around, you have maybe one okay one, and the rest are just so meh or anticlimactic, especially the final one, which the final one is a joke. And one of my least favorite aspects of Crimes and Punishment was obviously the mini games, which thankfully could be skipped, and I think is a sign that these developers know that their mini games are shit, which makes me wonder why they bother putting them in there at all. And oddly enough, it has a more focus on action this time around, like QTE button presses. It even has one god awful segment where it's that typical Assassin's Creed follow the person and don't get caught, because they'll occasionally stop right in their tracks and turn around and look to see if you're behind them. I hate it when games do that. I hated it when Assassin's Creed did it, and I especially hate it when a Sherlock Holmes game does it. So, this was a bummer, because I was really rooting for this game to be good, because I wanted another really good Sherlock Holmes games from these guys. And aside from some minor worries here or there, everything that was shown from the game in the trailers and in the gameplay, it looked solid. But man, they just really dropped the ball with this, especially after the excellent Crimes and Punishments. So here's hoping Frogwares gets their act together for the next one, or maybe they just take a long break away from Sherlock Holmes and then they return to it maybe 4 or 5 years from now and really knock it out of the park. But right now, with The Devil's Daughter, Crimes and Punishments for them was 2 big steps forward, and Devil's Daughter is 3 steps back. It is a very, very disappointing Sherlock Holmes game, especially after the really good Crimes and Punishments. So, get Crimes and Punishments, wait for that to go on sale, skip The Devil's Daughter. The next game is The Last Guardian. So, really my biggest problem, and the reason I consider The Last Guardian such a disappointment, is that the pieces are there for it to be really great. You've got amazing, amazing art direction, a companion that's one of the very best I've ever had the pleasure of being around in a game, as far as likability and buddy building is concerned. It has a great story that's told mostly non-verbally. It has a great ending, a really satisfying conclusion. It has a beautiful score. And it has some really clever puzzles to it as well. And I love looking at the game. I love listening to the game. I love going back and watching the cutscenes. But I never want to play it again because the controls are so damn frustrating. They feel like holdovers from the PlayStation 2 era. They are so clunky. And it's terrible trying to navigate the kid around. And the camera just makes it worse. And the shitty frame rate on the base PS4 just triples the shit. And then that's not even taking into consideration the Dogbird AI, which the Dogbird AI, most of the time, is awful. And I know Fumito Ueda, he wanted to build this theme of, oh, well, the animal doesn't react like you want because, animals don't sometimes react to you in real life. It's like, look, I get what you're trying to do, but having to spend 7 to 8 hours yelling at my TV for the Dogbird to do something as simple as jumping, that shouldn't be a problem in this day and age. I'm pretty sure games have figured out ways to make AI companions work better. Even something as big and huge as a big fluffy Dogbird. I'm pretty sure there are better ways to incorporate AI than the way they did here. And maybe, did you not think that maybe I would have an even greater emotional connection to the Dogbird if it wasn't so frustrating to deal with half the time? So maybe that should have been taken into consideration. But, I just feel sorry for The Last Guardian, because this is a game that, if they had released it 7 years ago, this would have been great. This could have been great. People would have been, I would have been a lot more forgiving about it. But since that point, that was announced back in 2009, we've had 7 years of innovation regarding, AI partners, frame rate, navigation, controls, camera, all that stuff. And The Last Guardian, mechanically is where it counts the most, it just feels like it's got its foot way stuck in the past. So, I love The Last Guardian in many ways. I really do, and I mean that. But the idea of playing through it again just makes me cringe. It just makes me never want to touch it again. And I have it on my shelf, and I'm never going to get rid of it because it has sentimental value to me. Like, I can show people that, this is proof that this game exists. I'm never going to get rid of it. But playing it again, that's something I don't see happening for a very long time, if ever, which is something I really did not want to say about The Last Guardian. So that's why it deserves a spot on here. It's beautiful to look at. It's amazing to listen to. I love the story. I love Dogbird as a character, but I don't want to play it ever again because of the controls and the AI and the camera and the frame rate. So I'd rather just go on YouTube and watch it again. Next game is Mighty Number 9. Really, this game needs no introduction. It was one of the biggest Kickstarter disasters in recent memory, if not of all time. It sullied the reputation of Keiji Inafune. It was a huge disappointment to Mega Man fans out there. It felt like a real slap in the face to them. They had one PR blunder after another. But the reason it's on here is that it's a fucking horrible game. And even after all the signs were pointing it to it being bad and disappointing, I still held out hope because I really did want this game to be good. Even when everybody was shitting on it and was like throwing mud at it and wanted it to be terrible, I did not want this game to be terrible. And the fucking thing turned out to be terrible. It is horribly unbalanced in terms of difficulty. The level design is pathetic, filled with cheap insta-death purple lightning and bosses that make you just want to tear out your fucking hair and throw your controller into the TV. It's a game that is so ugly to look at. It has awful voice acting. The art style changed. That is the thing that makes me the most mad about this. When this game was first announced, it had a good art style. It looked, it was bright and colorful. It popped with life. And then the way this shit looks now, it just looks like the most generic, ugly piece of shit you could put up from any kind of generic game engine. And I have to ask, $3 million went into this game? Are you serious? $3 million was contributed, plus maybe some other funds as well. So more, $3 million plus was spent on this? This is the result? This is the result. And then you've got a game like Yooka-Laylee, which got roughly, I think, like the same amount, if not a little bit more, thanks to PayPal backing and shit like that. But that game looks amazing. It looks beautiful. And then you get to go back to Mighty Number 9. It just looks like ass. It looks like complete ass. It looks awful. Yeah, I couldn't even finish the fucking game. I hated it so much. To me, like, I haven't played a lot of bad games this year, and I tend not to, because I tend to avoid the ones that are, obviously really terrible. But Mighty Number 9, in my opinion, is the worst game I've played all this year. I could not fucking stand it. I absolutely was pissed off going through it. It just, like, pushed me to the limit as far as what I'm willing to tolerate from my games. I couldn't tolerate any more of Mighty Number 9 shit. And it's shit. I don't give a damn how many people go, oh, well, it's just mediocre. It's just disappointing. No, it's shit. Okay? Mighty Number 9 is shit. The next game, is an obvious choice. No Man's Sky. Which, okay, let's ignore everything that had to do with, the PR behind it. The lies, the hype culture, Sean Murray talking shit, the months-long silence that Hello Games did when the game launched. Let's put that aside. Let's save that for the other video, which is top 10 things I hated about 2016. Because trust me, it's gonna fucking be on there. Let's just talk about the game. Alright? I'm going to focus just on the game. It's garbage. It is garbage. It's boring, empty garbage. It is... I can't believe some people... And you know what? I don't like to judge people from what they like. If you like something, you do you. Okay? If No Man's Sky made you happy... That's fine. I'm like I said in my reaction video to No Man's Sky, my review. If you like No Man's Sky, that's great. You do you. But I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand how anyone can like this. I don't get it. Because all you do in this game is slowly move towards a blank, empty, seemingly infinite universe and collect minerals. That's all you do. And I'm not including the fucking Founders patch that they announced and put into the game. I don't give a fuck. I don't care about any future free content that's going to come to it. Okay? I judge games based on what is on the disc when I put it into the PS4, plus day one patches. I will make an exception for day one patches. And even then, the day one patch for No Man's Sky did fuck all to make it good. Wasn't good. My first reaction to it, it's okay. It's whatever. I'm exploring some nice tropical planet. It's okay. But it hit me after about a couple hours of doing the same shit, of not encountering anything exciting or dynamic, and already having the illusion shattered for me, where this game was just, this one big procedurally generated thing where you got various Lego pieces that you just start putting together, and that makes the world of No Man's Sky. It's so shallow, and it feels so hollow and so unenjoyable because you're not really doing anything too. And if that fucking goddamn voice wouldn't shut up about 75%, life system low, it's like, shut up. Shut the fuck up. Same with the minerals. It's like, you need these minerals, and it's like, oh my god. So the whole game is just you going around this big empty playground. If you want to know like a good example of what I mean, go check out Jim Sterling's latest Jimquisition, where he talks about big empty sandboxes, and he names No Man's Sky as like the extreme of that. And I highly recommend you watch the video. It's a great video. But really, No Man's Sky taught me a lesson. And if there's one thing I'm grateful for the game, it's this, that it really taught me this. And this is something more developers could learn. Alright? Let me just whisper it to you. Doesn't matter how big your game is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Raw square footage doesn't matter. Because if I can't do anything meaningful in this game, then I'm not going to care. Sorry. You could make, vast empty valleys of stuff to do, and like collectibles and side missions where you just collect people or minerals or whatever the fuck you do in No Man's Sky. I don't care if there's nothing meaningful. If I'm just running around this like big infinite procedurally generated universe where like all the planets are basically the same and all the ships are basically the same, they all control the same, all the aliens almost always look the same, almost all the creatures look the same. I see the illusion, and it's broken like that. I see the puppet master already. I see the strings. And to me, the biggest crime you could commit for a game are actually two crimes you could commit. One, be boring, and two, break your illusion repeatedly. And those are the two cardinal sins of video gaming that No Man's Sky commits. And it's a shame, because I wanted this game to be really good. Like everything on this list. I was talking, I listed this I think number, in my top 10 most anticipated games of 2016. I think like all the games on here, this was one of the ones I was looking forward to the most, along with one other one, two other ones actually, and I talked about how I wanted to go around and find a planet that'd be worthy enough to name after my grandpa and stuff like that. And I thought I would be going on this like deep, meaningful adventure in No Man's Sky. Like people talk about how No Man's Sky made them understand themselves better. I mean, I don't understand that, but that's great if that makes you feel that way. But I thought I'd be going on some kind of cool adventure in No Man's Sky. Like, I'd be so overwhelmed by the vastness of the universe. It'd be this beautiful experience. And It's not. It's after about a couple hours, I was like, sorry, Grandpa, I can't hang around and do this shit. I got better things to do with my life than to go from one boring planet to another trying to find a planet that might be worthy enough eventually. That's the problem with No Man's Sky. It's like you might find something cool eventually. Hey, you got 18 quintillion planets to explore. Okay, whatever. What am I going to do on these 18 quintillion planets? Oh, collect minerals. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Hello Games. Next entry is King's Quest. So, I actually really like the first chapter of this game, and I like the ending. It's everything in the middle that I have the problem with. Because I wish I could like this game more. God damn it, I really do. This is one of the ones that really hurts from this list, because this game came out of nowhere for me. I was never planning to really get it, but then when it was free for PlayStation Plus, I was like, you know, what the hell? There's no excuse for me not to play it now. And I was really blown away by the first chapter. I really liked it. I was so charmed by this world that the Odd Gentleman created. It was so, you know, such like a beautiful fairy tale world. I loved its sense of humor. I even didn't mind the puzzles all that much. I liked the combination of like Telltale light elements to it, like the quick time event action scenes and the dialogue decision stuff that you get to do. It's really cool, and that was a really cool first chapter. Then it started to go downhill. Second chapter, it took away, you know, like you would move from environment to environment, and it would just be one. It was basically a bottle episode. Second episode, gone were the beautiful kingdoms, gone were the beautiful landscapes. You were just stuck in this cave, and it sucked. I hated it, and I was so bored going through its stupid puzzles. Then I got to the third episode, which was just mediocre, because the game didn't really do that good of a job of making you fall in love with your future wife, or whichever wife you were going to fall in love with. It just didn't do that good of a job, and again, it focused way too much on puzzles, so I didn't like that. The fourth episode is really what earns it a spot on this list, because it is one of the biggest pieces of shit I've played in quite some time. That's my big problem with this game, because the fourth episode is dedicated entirely to puzzles, and I absolutely hate most of the puzzles in King's Quest. And I know people are going to come at me and go, you know, oh, well, that's the whole point of the game. That's the whole point, you know, it's puzzles and stuff like that. But it didn't start out like that. It started out with really fun quick time event action scenes and good sense of humor, funny characters, good dialogue interactions. And then, you know, you had that stretch in the middle where it was the puzzles, but it wasn't frustrating. It felt like, you know, a natural progression for what you had to do. Then it started to, with each subsequent episode, it started to just become more about the puzzles. And that's ultimately what made me just not want to play it anymore. After I was done with the fifth episode, I was like, I don't need to play this series anymore. And that really sucks, because I love the world that these puzzles are based around. I grew to love these characters, and I love that it's very rare that you get to see a character grow up and develop before your eyes. Like, you see, like, the beginnings of young Graham in the first episode, and then he eventually turns into, you know, old King Graham, voiced by Christopher Lloyd, who's great in the role. And it just sucks, because I wanted to like this game more. I wanted to like it, but the game just kept pushing me away with the puzzles. And by the end of it, I just had to accept the fact that this game was just not made for me, that they weren't going to follow up on what I enjoyed about the first episode. I don't even have the heart to go through the epilogue that they released because I just don't want to. I don't want to deal with the puzzles anymore. And for all my complaints sometimes of like the old Telltale games with their puzzles, then they got some really crappy puzzles in those. They weren't like this. They could be done with in a heartbeat compared to how long some of them are. How frustrating they can be in King's Quest. And it sucks. Oh, this sucks. But what I would recommend is just if you don't like puzzles but want to get into King's Quest, just watch the cutscenes or watch a non-commentary playthrough of it on YouTube. It is, if you do it that way, I'm sure you will love watching this story. Especially with someone who knows what they're doing with the puzzles and won't get stuck for minutes on end. So that's how I gotta recommend King's Quest. Don't play it if you don't like puzzles. If you like puzzles, all kinds of puzzles, great. I'm sure you will like it a lot more than I did. But for me, King's Quest started out promising, and it just got worse after that. The next one, which is the one I'm sure is going to cause the most uproar or backlash on here, is Final Fantasy 15. And this isn't higher because I think the finale and the conclusion are magnificent. This game, for all of its problems with the story, has a magnificent payoff. I love the ending of this game. And me loving the ending to something goes a long way in my book. Which, if it wasn't satisfying, it would probably be number one. But it's still on here because I do consider Final Fantasy 15 to be a big disappointment. My biggest problem with this game is that I felt like I was waiting for it to load or to drive more than what I was actually playing it. Like, it will have you sit at this long loading screen to go somewhere, and then the car is such a big part of it that you drive for like up to maybe 10 minutes to a location, and after you've completed the story beats, there won't be any like funny dialogue for the characters to exchange while you drive. It'll just be silence. And listening to some of the all-time great Final Fantasy songs on the radio just doesn't cut it for me. The storytelling as well is mostly awful. Aside from the very last chapter and a handful of the beginning ones, awful. The storytelling is so bad. Characters, especially villains that should have, lots of screen time are barely seen, or like they're seen in the beginning and then they reappear at the end with little to no explanation as to how they got there or why they're doing what they're doing, and it just sucks. The plot moves along at such a really awkward, choppy pace. Like I said, like the characters' motivations are just barely explained. You've got characters that leave the party for no reason whatsoever, never explained. Really frustrating dungeon segments that I hated some of the dungeon segments in this game. Its treatment of the female leads is awful. I hated how Luna's story concluded. I hate that the most prominent woman in the game has like her tits out most of the time. Like the coolest female characters, in my opinion, are just like side notes. They're just footnotes. They're barely seen. When I wanted them to be the stars of the show. I mean, fuck Luna. I don't give a damn about Luna. Luna to me is not an interesting character. And they try to make her into like this Aerith-like figure, and she's not. And the way her story concludes, it's such bullshit. It's bullshit. Hated it. Also, don't even fucking get me started on Chapter 13, which is one of the most unpleasant gaming experiences I've ever had. I almost fucking quit because of Chapter 13. God, I hated it. Whoever's idea it was to make a fucking survival horror stealth section in Final Fantasy deserves a big fucking slap in the face. And it's telling. It's really telling that Square Enix knows that the storytelling in this game in Chapter 13 are completely fucked. When they are making plans to add in more cutscenes to flesh out the character motivations, particularly Ravu, who's supposed to be like a big villain, and he's shown like once in the beginning, is barely seen again until the end, and then fixes to Chapter 13, which guys, you've had 3 years. I know they said development on Final Fantasy 15 didn't happen until like 2012 or 2013. You've had 3 to 4 years to test this. And now that the guinea pigs have said that it sucks, now you want to release a patch for it? Okay, Square Enix, okay. But yeah, I was just overall just so bummed out by Final Fantasy 15. I was so looking forward to this. And it was like my most anticipated game of the year. But it just, in the end, just broke my heart. You broke my heart, Square Enix. You better get your act together for Kingdom Hearts 3. Because if that turns out to be a disappointment, I will never forgive you for this. I never, ever. So, make Kingdom Hearts 3 good. That's all I'm saying. Don't have it turn out like, for me, don't have it turn out like Final Fantasy 15. Because that will just make me sad. The next game on my most disappointing games of 2016 is Firewatch. And this one really stings, because unlike something like King's Quest, this was a game that was tailor-made for me. This is a game that I feel like was made with me in mind, my sensibilities, what I enjoy in games. It is a narrative-driven, dialogue choice-based mystery set in this beautiful outdoor environment with excellent writing and amazing acting. Like, the 2 lead characters in this game are phenomenal. Phenomenally acted. The setup is great. The initial interactions between Henry and Delilah are so good, so rich with natural conversation. Even back when this game was first getting announced, and I remarked to myself, like, wow, I gotta keep an eye on this game, because it has some of the most natural sounding dialogue and performances I've ever heard in my life from a video game. It was amazing to look at and listen to. An absolute treat. But while the first half of this game is really damn good, it's the second half that lands this game on this list, because nothing pays off. The conclusion to the central mystery is so weak, so anticlimactic, a complete buzzkill of a conclusion. And also, none of your dialogue choices matter in the end. And I know, and I understand, without getting into spoilers, that this was Campos Santo's intention. Like, what they were going for thematically in the ending, was their intention. But, I'm sorry, I still don't find it satisfying. I was just, like, instead of feeling, like I had this, like, really great experience at the end of Firewatch, I just sat there in front of my PS4, just staring at the screen like, really? That's it? With this, like, sad, sinking feeling in my gut. It feels awful. That's, like, I hate it when I have feelings like that after playing something disappointing. When it feels like something is missing. And you just are left like, the game ends, and you're just sitting there with just this gut-wrenching reaction. And it's awful. Speaking of PS4, this game runs so poorly on the base PS4. I don't know how it runs or if it has any kind of capabilities for the Pro, but when it came out on the PS4, even after multiple patches, the thing can barely function at 30 frames per second, which for a game that's running on Unity with an art and graphic style that really should not be demanding of the PS4 is unacceptable. It's fucking ridiculous in this day and age. So, in my opinion, this game, it needed more time in the oven. It needed another year, another year and a half at least to smooth out the graphics, to smooth out the frame rate, to maybe add in more story to it, because this game like jumps ahead so far where it feels like you're missing certain segments of the development of the relationship between these two characters. And I wanted more, but not in a good way. Like, not in a way where, like, something like Titanfall 2, where I finished Titanfall 2 and I go, wow, that was so satisfying. I want more of this. Like, and I mean that as the highest compliment I can give. But I don't mean that as a compliment with Firewatch. It just felt like so much was missing, and what they were going for was ultimately just really underwhelming and really disappointing. So, Firewatch, a game that should have been my game of the year, or one of my games of the year, just fell flat, and I was left feeling really sad when it ended, because this game looked so good, and it looked tailor-made for me, and I'm still waiting for a game that isn't Telltale to deliver on this kind of storytelling. And I wish Campo Santo the best. I'm glad that this game sold well. I'm glad that it brought them a spotlight, because honestly, with what they were going for and the writing capabilities that they have, they deserve that spotlight. I just wish their debut game was better. And finally, what is, in my opinion, the most disappointing game of 2016. Street Fighter V. And the reason this is so disappointing, the reason it's my most disappointing game of the year, is because I like it so much. It's such a good game. The gameplay is great. The art style I love. I love playing this game with friends when they come over to my house, or I go over to their house. I love this game so much, which absolutely makes me disgusted with how Capcom treated it. This game, and like I said with No Man's Sky, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a flying rat's ass what is released afterwards. I don't care how much free shit they patch into this game, or how much DLC is coming later. I judge what is on the disc. What is there for me day one that I'm forking $60 over for? I don't buy games for promises. And that's what Street Fighter V was. It was an early access game where it didn't even have a shop. It still to this day doesn't even have an arcade mode. It didn't have a good training mode. It didn't have a cinematic story. It didn't have a good solid roster. It had 16 characters, which is pitiful compared to Mortal Kombat X when that came out. At launch, there was no good training mode, no story mode, no arcade mode. Still isn't any arcade mode. Shitty roster, no shop, really bad rage quitting features where like rage quitters would just go nuts, and there wasn't any proper punishment for them at the time. And this game even had the fucking nerve, the fucking temerity to ask for more money while it was launching with such little to no meat on its bones. It asked for more. It asked, hey, you spent $60 on this game that barely has anything in it? Well, if you pay us, $30 more, you'll get 4 more characters. Isn't that great? No. Fuck off. Fuck off, Capcom. And again, let me make this clear. I don't give a fuck if Capcom added a story mode later. I don't give a fuck if Capcom added a rage quitter, a good solid rage quitter punishment just a couple weeks ago. I don't give a fuck. You know what? I'm not paying $60 for fucking early access bullshit. If you want to be an early access game, go to fucking Steam. Be labeled as an early access game. But don't pull this shit where you release a $60 game and give people the impression that you are a complete experience. To me, this is way worse than something like Battlefront or Rainbow Six Siege. This is like the worst example I've seen of this trend. And thankfully, it's a trend that I feel like is dying out. Thankfully. Where they're going to release with minimal content and then ask for more. Just a couple months ago, just last month, they announced a Season 2, a Season 3, and they threw at you another paid DLC expansion for more characters. They're asking you to pay for Akuma, one of the best characters in the series. He's not in the game at launch. Oh, but you gotta pay for Akuma. You gotta pay for Guile. You gotta pay for all these other cool characters. Well, fuck that. And fuck you, Capcom. This game is the exact reason why I'm so mistrusting of you right now. I'm so mistrusting of a lot of fighting games. Like after like the 1-2 punch of Mortal Kombat X and this, I'm done. I'm done playing fighting games at launch. I'm done spending my own money on fighting games at launch. I'll wait. I can wait for a Super, complete edition. And I know you said, oh, well, we're never going to do a Super Street Fighter 5. That's not going to happen. Yeah, bullshit. Tell that to your stockholders after the game bombed this bad, Capcom. You know what? I'm fucking ecstatic that this game bombed financially. And Capcom got so much shit for what they pulled because it was absolutely fucking pathetic. And hopefully, because this game bombed so much, that's what they're gonna fucking listen to. They're gonna listen to they're gonna listen to your wallet. They're going to listen to the sales. They're not going to listen to the people screaming and yelling at them for all the crap that they're pulling. They're going to look at the sales. And because they missed their sales projection of 600,000 units, that says a lot. And the fact that they still haven't even really come out and apologized for that, they haven't added an arcade mode in. They come out with bullshit like, oh, well, we really misjudged the single-player component of Street Fighter. You know, the arcade mode that fucking got us into the arcades? You know, the thing that made us a household name? Yeah, we underestimated. We really didn't think people wanted that anymore. It's like, fuck off. How stupid do you think we are, Capcom? How fucking stupid do you think we are? God. But yeah, Street Fighter 5, easily the most disappointing game of 2016 for me, because I liked it. I wanted it to be, I think it is a great game at its core, but just the business practices behind it were fuck awful. Just awful. Pathetic. And Capcom paid the price for it, which is a hell fucking yeah. It makes you just fist pump the air. I love it. I love that this thing bombed financially. And that Capcom is kind of just standing around with their tail between their legs like, oh, well, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom, here's Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite over here. You can forget about Street Fighter 5 now. Move on to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Which, be warned, they can still pull this again with Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate. Or Infinite. Just warning you guys. Just giving you guys a warning. Alrighty, so those are my most disappointing games of 2016. Some dishonorable mentions, I guess. Just very briefly. Mafia 3, didn't play it. Didn't have any desire to after the crap they pulled with the PC version. And the fact that it's just a big empty sandbox again. Modern Warfare Remastered, still haven't touched it. Probably won't for a while, not while Activision's keeping it hostage behind Infinite Warfare, which is a game that I have little to no interest in, and that they added microtransactions to it. Great! That's great, Activision. I'm glad to see your lack of shame is still in full effect. And Dishonored 2, which was so fucking boring that I turned it off, that I deleted it like halfway through. I was done. I'm done with Dishonored 2. Fucking couldn't stand it. So, anyway. Thank you guys for watching. If you like what you see, subscribe. Let me know what your most disappointing games of 2016 are. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. And I apologize that I haven't had that many videos out these last couple weeks, because I've just been going through a lot of really emotional shit or personal shit. So it hasn't been a fun holiday for me. I'll just put that out there. It hasn't really been that fun. So, but yeah, 2017, hopefully gonna come back strong. And this month already, we got Resident Evil 7 and Kingdom Hearts 2.8, which is awesome. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Have a good one, guys. Take care.